Dr. Gatter, good to see you
nice
again.
to meet you. Thank God you introduced yourself. I'm going, I really don't know who
We met in October, right, in Miami. Yeah, when I was there with one of our procurement techs, Adrian. Go ahead. Yeah, Susan is using the restroom. So.
How are you?
Pretty good. It's been really, I mean, ever since the holidays, I feel like I've been going non-stop. So it's been kind of tough to find a time. But I'm glad that we were able to make it work.
So where are you based? Where's your?
We're based in Long Beach.
Long Beach, okay.
Yeah, Norwalk, Long Beach area.
This is so loud. I wonder if they consider turning it down.
Oh, the music?
I'm even wearing my hearing aids.
Oh gosh.
It's okay.
Fortunately, I guess it's not too crowded here. I was surprised. I thought that there'd be a lot of people.
It's a nice place. I've been here a couple of times.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're in Long Beach now. Are you associated with an academic institution of any sort?
Myself, not really. No, I have a relationship with some people at Cal State Long Beach, but it's not very official.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your company is called what again?
Biomax. So I'm the who's Susan, who's actually my boss.
Hi, Mary Gavin.
Very nice to meet you.
We're just waiting for Laura to Laurel.
Would it be better do you want to be on the inside?
I think so.
Okay. Maybe I need to use the restroom real quickly, so if I can.
Okay.
I can start to around the corner to the. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I'll be back in 2 minutes.
We'll be here. You know what? I was just thinking, is this meeting not supposed to be happening? Sinus headache. I am just totally out of it. So, but no, I couldn't postpone again, right? Thank you so much.
Keep your eyes peeled for Laura.
Okay, what does she look like?
She is mid-50s, sort of a little chunky, my height, with blondish hair.
Okay, all right. I've got a clear shot.
Okay.
So,
right.
So how are you?
I'm well. So, your companion, whose name is?
Robert.
Robert, okay. Robert, Susan. I'm getting older. The name's
Me
first.
too.
Like,
If we,
please.
yes, I have been calling him a different name, and I don't even know. He looked at me, and I thought, oh, you'll understand when you get this age. What did I call him? Oh, well, it was David. I said David, which is his middle name, but I never call him that. So I think it's the sinus headache.
And plus, I'm experiencing this music as loud. Maybe because I put in my hearing aids this morning. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so Robert was explaining that your company is in Long Beach, and how long have you been around?
Well, I'm a startup.
Okay.
And we're coming up on we're coming up on our anniversary very soon, 1 year.
Okay.
So.
How did you get into this business?
Oh, that's a long story. I got into it years and years ago, 80s. And what I was doing is working with women, really doing counseling with them. Mm-hmm. The whole stigma, pressure from family, the depression. Mm-hmm. So that was really where I started, just counseling. Mm-hmm. And then, hi.
You guys anything to drink for right now? I know we're waiting.
I have iced tea.
Iced tea for the lady? Yes.
I'll take one of those too. And if we could get 4 waters, and one person knows we're here, but we're on the lookout for a female.
A fourth one?
Yes, female. All right.
Laurel, so.
Thank you. Yes,
okay.
Thank you. So, and then, well, we're about the same age, I'm going to guess. How it got 80s, and it just very dangerous, very. So, and I was raising my family, and so went away, but just still keeping my hands. It was a clinic in this area. It's closed down since then, but where I first got in. But now I just see such a positive direction that can take with.
Well, how did you connect up with your academic partners?
So my niece was working in research, and she knows Robert. And actually, she came to me and was just telling me about the work that she was doing, and that researchers were not able to
Get tissue.
yeah. So I just sort of put 2 and 2 together and thought, I mean, the main thing at that time, thank you very much, the main thing at that time was this could be something positive that I can work with women saying, no, this is not all negative. You don't have to.
Well, it's been my experience that people are eager to find some silver lining in their situation, and that
Exactly.
more than 70 or 80% of people that you approach will say yes. So.
Exactly. Really, 70, is that what you're finding? 78%?
The last time I was involved in a tissue, I'm stepping back. For years, I was the medical director of Planned Parenthood in Los Angeles, and we had 15,000 procedures a year, and we had a relationship with people out of UCLA who then switched to USC, whose name I'm forgetting now. And they would bring their own researcher in to our staff would get the informed consent, which has to be the federal informed consent, and then their staff would look at the tissues which they wanted. They wanted neurons and stem liver that day, whatever. And also, be discreet. And the other was Sweden. They would come mostly to our main site where we did procedures to 24 weeks. And so they were mostly in bigger cases. And when we start talking, so it was my experience that maybe 60 or 70%, but a large percentage of women that you approach would say yes. Now, not all those women were eligible because, thank you very much. I don't know how much you know about this, but at Los Angeles, we were into digoxin as a feticidal agent. So once you apply a feticidal agent, then for many researchers, you can't do that anymore.
It nukes the stem cells.
Yeah. Anyway, so then about a year and a half ago, I retired from PPLA, and I had been at Pasadena since '05. So I just continued my work at Pasadena, which is a much smaller affiliate, much more suitable for a semi-retired person, that kind of thing. And plus I live in San Marino, which is close to here. So it was a kind of no-brainer to keep up with that. And Laura, who'll be joining us, is our lead clinician there. So you had asked for some statistics. We do about 800 abortions a year, and about 60 of them are between 12 and 16 weeks. So I didn't know if that was going to satisfy you, not satisfy you, would be what you were interested in, or what.
Well, okay, whether it would satisfy, maybe it's not the volume that I'm thinking about, but would it fulfill something else? Yes, I think it would. What do you,
Well, so we were interrupting our discussion about your organization. So you started this a year ago as a startup.
Yes.
And you're a for-profit.
Right.
Okay. Your academic connections for researchers are with...
Right. I was telling her, Brianna coming to me and talking about researchers not being able to get enough tissue.
It's a perennial problem. Let me just interrupt you and say, 30 years ago I was working in New Haven, and we had people at Yale who were doing research on Parkinson's and stuff like that, and I was involved in a tissue donation there as well. Not with the Planned Parenthood, with the Women's Health Services. They would come, they were very grateful for anything we could give them because they were just desperate to have tissue.
So I might be looking high volume to satisfy the needs, but I'm just in a position that I see in this last year the great strides we made, but one problem that I have encountered is saying, oh yes, I can get this for you, and then not be able to. So I don't want to run into that. I don't want to get that reputation. So.
And there are some organizations that have that reputation.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, if you have a high enough volume, you can get pretty much anything.
Right.
So have you approached FPA? Have you talked to FPA?
FPA is because we're close with Deborah Nicotola, and she was kind of our go-between with them and FPA over the summer. And FPA apparently doesn't feel like they're in a position to partner with something like that. They feel like it's too research-based, and that's
well,
not
you know what their
fitting
issue
with
was? Now that I think about it, I spoke with them a while. You know Rachel Stewart, the medical director?
Right,
Yeah.
I know.
I think, now this was before Rachel though, I think their attitude was that they were also a for-profit and they didn't feel like they could reasonably partner with another for-profit unless they'd be accused of selling tissue or convincing people to have procedures for the specific, so it's a PR issue for them. But they do 50,000 abortions a year. They're huge, so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounded. Yeah. I didn't know much about them when we started talking with Deb, and it sounded it was sounding really good. But yeah, that apparently. I mean, she reached out to them. She I think she's close to Rachel, and they said that it was not something they wanted to be involved in. So it's been kind of what was maybe kind of the most disappointing thing over the summer was to discover that pretty much every affiliate in California is already partnered
Yes,
with
I
a
was
distribution
going to say,
organization.
yes.
STEM
Because
Express has the whole North, and then ABR has San Diego, and there's Novogenics in LA, and then I guess there's a private lab in Orange. So we had assumed that California was completely saturated, and so we were starting to
We've got
turn
one
that gaze
small
farther.
pocket of people who aren't paired up yet, which is Pasadena, but our volume is not big.
And so it's literally 800 surgical procedures.
798. Yeah.
Wow.
A year. That's surgical. Remember, our MEBS volume is going up too. There's more and more patients. I mean, when medication abortion was approved back in 2000, I'm a surgeon, so like many surgeons, and everyone in my environment thought, who would want to do this? You know, who would want to miscarry at home, cramp the at home, and then come in for a quick little surgical procedure? It turns out a lot of women would rather do that than come in for any kind of surgical procedure. So our, I think Laura can correct me, but it might be as many as 30% of our total AB volume is now medication abortion, which is not helpful for you.
No.
Right. No.
So you found that surprised you, that people would be...
Yeah, I was surprised. I've learned from my experience, and now I kind of understand it a little more, but I was surprised that people would rather cramp and bleed at home than have a short surgical procedure, because my mindset is oriented toward. And plus, there was a lot of fear back in 2000 that our phone lines would be overwhelmed with people calling. But it turns out that if you do proper counseling up front about how much to expect, and when we got calls from 12-year-old kids who had been told their parents they were coming in who were horrified at the amount of bleeding and cramping, and then some who went to the emergency room, and some of the emergency rooms were Catholic hospitals. So all this kind of stuff goes on. But in general, and we now have permission to go to 10 weeks as well. The original FDA was approved up to 7 weeks, and then evidence-based alternatives started. Now, I wonder if my beep is going off. Let me just walk out there and see.
Okay.
Because she's usually very reliable.
What did I miss while I was gone? What did I miss while I was gone?
Just a real... Tell me about how'd you get into this? Really a hard, fast, inquisitive, like, oh, this is going to be hard to keep the upper hand here. But that's okay. I just met it straight on, and counseling with women that. Do you think you could get a? Do you think you could get a pen from him? My pen ran out of ink.
She gave me. Maybe she's texting me. Maybe she doesn't know where Hoogus Alley is. The only reason I know where it is my hairdresser's right across the square. So I said, I'll make a note of this address.
Do you think you could ask if they literally ran out of ink, if they have a pen?
You want me to get it from right now?
Oh, I would love it. Out of ink. So, do you want to wait for Laurel, or?
Well, we can start the conversation. I'm sure she'll.
Yeah, just some things. So, what have you done in the past as far as providing tissue, and how has that worked for you? The logistics and.
Okay, so I was involved in New Haven. I was involved in Boston. I've been a long-term supporter of the concept.
Dr. Stubblefield in Boston?
Yeah. So I trained in Boston. So Novogenics was our partner at PPLA, and they would send, as PPLA's big volume, and so they would send Heather, who's one of their staff, to the site. And our staff, our medical assistants, were used to discussing with the patients, are you interested in donating some tissue? And they would say yes or no. And as I said, a lot of them said yes. Maybe it wasn't as high as 60. I think it might have been, but I don't know what that. So then once the patients had signed the consent form, for patients who had not received the toxin, Heather would go and just look through the tissue, and if she would take that's probably Laurel, she would take the pieces that she wanted, and it worked out quite well for everyone. She was unobtrusive, she was helpful, all that kind of stuff. Laurel?
Dr. Gatter, hi, it's Laurel.
Hi, Laurel. You having trouble finding Hugo Sally?
No, I'm here, but I'm not done.
AKA Bistro? Well, we're here. We're in the back, so come all the way to the back.
You're in the back of the restaurant inside?
Yeah, we're inside. Are you at AKA Bistro on Hugus?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
come
that's right
in.
here.
Okay, so
Inside the restaurant.
come inside. You see me?
Yeah, I see her walking in, I think.
I should have said on the inside.
Yeah, no, not a problem. And then I thought they would just easily was out here. We got it straight. Thank you very much. Oh, my apologies. I'm going. Hello, Laurel
Robert.
Felcher. Nice to meet you. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
My apologies. They thought only seating the person I talked to, they only thought they'd seated people outside.
Oh.
So you're waiting,
Calling you.
outside?
No, no,
I
no.
just-
I'm parking in the.
Yeah, good thing you.
Sorry for the bad information there, ma'am. I didn't
Not a problem. They're
Sure,
coming
sure,
from
sure.
you.
make sure I wasn't like playing a trick on
No,
you.
no,
or something
no.
like that. I
Thank
just didn't
you.
realize.
Not a problem. Thanks so much.
So we had just started the conversation, and Susan was explaining they're a startup, that they have been about a year in business. They're a for-profit company that's connecting researchers with people willing to donate tissue. And we just started talking, they were a little bit concerned about the fact that they're in Long Beach, but that they had the understanding that every California affiliate was also already paired up with a tissue donation program, except Pasadena. So that's why they're approaching us. Our volume, thank you for giving it to me, is 800 a year, with 60 in the second trimester. And we just started to talk about how the process worked with Novogenics down in Los Angeles when I was there.
Okay.
To back up a little bit, PPFA, our parent body, is on board with tissue donation, but we have to ask for a waiver to do it, and we have to lay out for them what our program is going to be like. And it's absolutely a requirement that we use only the official federal government form for tissue donation, that we don't modify it in any way. Novogenics was working on the concept that California has slightly different requirements, it's always slightly different, and they wanted to very reasonably insert the California requirements into the consent form, the federal form. People didn't know you have to have two separate forms, so it just added to the burden of consent issues. But I was also explaining to them that when I was in Los Angeles, maybe 60 to 70% of patients said yes to tissue donation. So, and the mechanics of it was that Heather, a Novogenics person, would come to the site, and our staff would sign the patients up and get consent, and then Heather would look at the tissue and take what she required. So it was logistically very easy for us. We didn't have to do anything. So there was compensation for this, and there was a discussion as I was leaving. They had been paying by the case, and there was some discussion about doing it in a different way, or I don't know what you're used to doing. How are you used to doing compensation? The patients don't get anything, of course. But
I want to go back to that percentage of people that do consent. Do you find it makes a difference with who is approaching them, how they're approached?
no, the person who's approaching the medical assistants, they have to be obviously on board with the program, but I didn't find that made a difference who approached them. Just what I found a difference was that they were not consistently approached, and how busy it was. The busier you are, the less likely the staff is going to take the time to say, by the way, here's 2 more forms for you to sign. You
Yes,
know? And
yes.
Just waste, because sometimes poor Heather would be there saying, oh, I really need liver today.
Yes.
And there'd be a 17-week patient who would be perfect, and she wasn't approached. If she's not approached, then you can't do it, you know, so it's a problem.
Is that, and so that's, I mean, that's something where I would think of, you know, whether you want to use, you know, your in-clinic staff doing consenting, or whether our technicians should be doing that, because that's another option as well. And now it sounds like it has to be the PPFA form that's used for consenting. It can't be an
PPFA
outside
uses
form.
the federal form. The federal
right.
government has put out a form saying, here's the form for tissue donation, aside from PP. PPFA has mandated to us that we use the federal form. Now, you can also use a California-specific form or your company-specific form, but you have to use
You've got to use at least that one.
Okay.
But your experience so far is it's always been your clinic staff does the consenting, not the outside technician.
And I was with the San Diego affiliate, and they were utilizing the same process
With
there, that it
ABR.
was the staff who were doing the consenting, and then they had someone there who was doing the collection from the company.
And
I think if they're well, you know, it's an education piece, absolutely, for the staff. The AV's support staff are very well trained, and I think with a small amount of training, I think it's easy to bring them up to speed. We've recently rolled out we're participating in a research project with AV Services too, and that's gone well. You know, there was a learning curve obviously for that with the education, but they took that on and have done quite well with it.
okay.
What
Okay.
Novogenics did, they came in, and I facilitated this. They came in for a half-hour session with the staff before we started the program, and they had a PowerPoint, and they said, here's where the tissue's going, here's the diseases that are helpful, blah, blah, blah. And they bought donuts with them. No, that was not the required part, but you know, as you know. So, yeah, that was, I think the staff, if they understand the program, are more likely to buy into it and to want to participate.
Okay. So, logistically, what would that look like if we were to come in, not come in? How we're planning to.
So I was always envisioning that our tech would do everything. So that's less work for you guys. I mean, obviously they're doing the collection and shipping and all that, but also they would also do the consenting, and they can kind of be a clinic float that way, depending on your flow or how,
Yeah, I mean,
how
that's
that
not
works.
something to turn down. I think looking at that also, you know, may well help with flow to decrease the amount of time that they're having to do with intake, our staff, and then move them to a separate room. I'm trying to think, strategize about the room
Space.
situation over there. We actually have the 3 rooms that we're using in Express, and they're only essentially using 2. So I don't think space-wise it would probably be an
Wouldn't be a problem.
But the
Okay.
more you move people around from one building to another, you introduce
Well, I think they
delays.
could.
Multiple buildings.
We have a second building out in our parking lot, where actually we have just moved to a trial where we're, other than, no, they've been doing, I'm sorry, let me think where they're doing ultrasound, but it's a separate waiting area for the patients coming in for in-clinic abortion, and they're able to wait with their partners, and it's out of the family planning setting.
Is consenting happening over there?
Yes.
Oh, well then that's good.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
doing the intake. They are splitting it sometimes, but for the most part, let me take it back. They're doing the intake in the main clinic, and then they move them for pre-op and everything the rest of the time out there. So we could keep it consistent, so we wouldn't be running people back and forth and back and forth.
Here's a side issue. If we use your staff to do the consenting, obviously she's your employee, not our employee, but insofar as she's dealing with our patients, she had to take all those courses, how to talk about abortion, how to do this, how to do that.
There'd probably be a couple that it would fall under that we'd want her to take.
Yeah. So what's her status wouldn't be independent contractor, which we have a
I have
contract.
no idea.
Yeah, so we have
No
to
idea
Or
what
you
that
feel
would
like
look like.
Planned Parenthood would need a contract with our
Oh,
tech?
yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we need a contract with you guys that would specify some of these things, that your staff
Right.
would behave in a professional manner,
Right,
that
right.
you be vetted as to
Right.
choice, that you wear a name tag, you know, all those kind of things.
Right.
Like that.
But on top of that, there would be a specific personal contract.
Well, that's what we're just talking about. Probably not.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, it may fall under like, yeah, if it falls
Business
under you and they're
associate
your employee, then probably not.
Probably not.
It's an interesting question though, to research.
I know.
Tissue donation's on the cusp of research and something else. And so I know for years, well, PPLA and Northern California, we were one of the vanguards to have PP doing this kind of stuff. And I know that PP National had a hard time trying to figure out where to draw the lines and whether to have us sign. In fact, now it's all coming back to me. If you guys were doing a specific one research project, we would have to sign it up as a research project. But if you're collecting tissue for multiple research projects, not just one, then it falls into the tissue donation area. It's complicated. The paperwork is a nightmare.
Do you remember? Does that track with what Deb was telling us before? Or because I remember this sounds very familiar to me that there was a
They're
lot
always
of
changing their
discussion.
mind. They're always changing. I'm sorry. But at the last moment I checked into this, we did not require a research form submission to do tissue donation, provided it wasn't a one-on-one relationship with a researcher who was looking for tissue.
Okay. Does that track with?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to. We'll be exhibiting at the Medical Directors Council meeting in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if you'll be attending.
I'm now the president of that organization.
Oh.
Of course I'll be there.
Excellent. Yeah, so we'll be there, and I guess, I imagine, I've never been, I'm imagining that'll be more of a, there's more dialogue with the national office in a setting like that, so that might be a good opportunity to hear what the most up-to-date protocol is for everything. Should I look at what I'm going to get here?
Well, did you get something to drink?
Yeah, he took my order. Thank you so much.
I know.
I just saw Reuben.
I'm staring at that
I
too.
just saw Reuben.
I'm getting it.
You can have a salad.
And folks, if you are interested, we do have a soup of the day and a pasta du jour. Soup of the day is a mushroom soup. Pasta du jour is an in-house fettuccine noodle we make here with a little duck confit on top of that as well.
Thank you.
Very right. Take your time.
Okay, so I'd like, what would you expect for intact tissue? What sort of compensation? What sort of?
Well, why don't you start by telling me where you used to pay it?
Okay, I don't think so. I would like to know what would make you happy. What would work for you?
Well, you know, in negotiations, the person who throws out the figure first is at a loss, right? So.
No, I don't look at it that way. I know you want to play that game. I get it.
I don't want to play games. I just don't want to
I want
lowball because I'm used to low things from.
You know what? If you lowball, I'll act pleasantly surprised, and you'll know it's a lowball.
Okay.
What I want to know is what would work for you. Don't lowball it.
Okay.
Tell me what you
$75 a specimen.
Oh, that's way too low. And that's way too low. I
I was
want
going
to
to say
keep you
50
happy.
because I've been at places that did 50 too. But see, we're not in it for the money, and we don't want to be in a position of being accused of selling tissue and stuff like that. On the other hand, there are costs associated with the use of our space and all that kind of stuff. So what would you think about?
Right. So way higher than that. So I'd like to start at around 100.
Okay. Now this is for tissue that you actually take, not just the tissue that person volunteers that you can't find it.
Exactly. Right. What we can use, what is intact. So that's why I'm saying no, don't lowball. I want you to be
Well,
happy.
it's complicated by the fact that our volume is so low too. I mean, are you looking at 8 and 9 week specimens or for the second trimester?
Yeah, that's my question.
Well, so here's kind of where the different factors that come into that. A lot of the research demand, I wouldn't say a majority, but I would say a plurality would be for second trimester and later second trimester. And there are some good scientific reasons for that, having to do with the cell differentiation and how developed it is and all that. But at the same time, it's also somewhat artificial because it's just there's just the practical consideration, like you said, of whether the tech can actually find what they're looking for, and it happens to be easier in the second trimester. Whereas if you're trying to do first try, you're waiting for an intact enough specimen to come out to search around and find it, and even then you might be spending an hour playing find a liver for whatever you're looking for. And it wouldn't really be microscope assisted.
Naked eye.
I mean,
using a
you
microscope
can.
to look at the tissue to find what you want.
For the our techs are most used to, they're doing like adipose tissue and stuff like that from cosmetic surgery centers right now, so that might be a logistical thing we have to look at a little more carefully.
So did you folks like to order maybe, or do you want a couple minutes?
Sure.
We're ready.
Start with all them first.
To turn the volume down
No,
a
it's
bit.
okay. I've gotten used to it.
Yeah,
Turn the music down a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit would be good. Thank you. So So I'll have the beet salad.
The beet salad?
And can you throw some chicken on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The Reuben.
The Reuben, you got it. With the steak fries or mixed green salad?
Salad.
Salad. And for you?
I haven't gotten that. Could you?
Oh, could I have the can I get the pasta du jour?
Pasta du jour, yes, sir.
They need to be big too. I'll have
Oh, yes, ma'am.
the goat cheese salad, and can you also have chicken in the back?
That's it. You got it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. So I'll get that music going.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The problem is that we only are doing 60-second fries a year, that's 1 week.
Right.
If she doesn't say yes, then your staff is tied up the whole day, or we had, when we first started the program, we had a situation, we had a policy that she would call the day before and say how many 10-weekers do you have, how many 12-weekers, and she was going to come in so that people even the fake chance that she could get some tissue from that.
So call the day before so that,
Look at the schedule, say how many second tries, and now, second tries could not show up, there's a lot of slip between, the plan and the actuality, but the staff will call up, your staff will call up the night before and say, I need, 12-weekers, do you have any 12 or 13-weekers, or that kind of thing, and then she would know to come in or not come in, which makes it irregular for you in terms of what she's going to do with it.
so coordinating what we need with what is available just the night before.
I mean, the schedule is pretty much full almost a week before.
Okay.
We do
The music
very
going okay with
typical.
you now?
Perfect.
That's wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you.
How much does it change within a week's time? What kind of change? Just ballpark
I
figure.
mean, usually the schedule is so full that they can't fill any more appointments. They won't add any more appointments, so they're moving then to the next week's schedule.
Okay.
So, I mean, at least typically by the Monday before the Friday, the schedule's set and
Okay.
full.
And you don't see much.
Okay. I mean, we can certainly
But
check
how,
back on that,
from
but
the
no.
full schedule on Monday, how many show up on Friday?
Well, I mean, they are having an excellent show rate today. Last week they did 23 patients. The demand, I think, is higher after the holidays, which is typically what we always see. But on average, they've been averaging about 20 to 24 patients every Friday.
Okay.
And it's a combination of first and second tries. But as you, in those numbers, second tries are much, much less than our first tries.
So is Friday your only procedure day?
It is.
Okay.
And
Well, we're
once
thinking of adding more. I mean, we're thinking we're
Yeah, we're on the cusp of staffing-wise and the need to carry out family planning visits. We're watching how far out our scheduling is. We're not ready to go to a second day yet, and as I was just going to share, once in a while there's a change in the schedule. So coming up near the end of March, we're going to move. Occasionally, we'll move the Friday to a Tuesday, but that certainly is usually set out a good month in advance, so we know that too.
And we also are thinking about our Alhambra Center, right?
Eventually, yeah. But nothing currently, and nothing through the end of this fiscal year. So
Oh,
nothing.
And would you be adding the second procedure day during this fiscal year, or?
Not this fiscal year,
not
no.
this year, okay.
No, and I mean, unless something dramatically changed with the numbers. And for the last year, our in-clinics have held very steady, if not dropped just a little bit, with the switch to medication abortions coming up in numbers. But for the most part, as you can see in those numbers, it's been fairly constant between the 180 and the 200 mark quarterly.
And when you add a procedure, I mean, I guess it's not relevant for this year, but does that mean that it's that your procedure volume is just more spread out over the week, or does it actually increase? It adds because yeah.
Well, there's no point in adding a session to just divide.
Right. Just
And the intact specimens. I wanted to touch on that again.
right. So what I was trying to say is if 10 to 12 week end of the first trimester, if those are pretty intact specimens, then that's something we can work with.
So that's,
and
that's an interesting concept. Let me explain to you a little bit of a problem, which may not be a big problem. If our usual technique is suction at 10 to 12 weeks, and we switch to using an iPass or something with less suction or increase the odds that will come out as an intact specimen, then we're kind of violating the protocol that says to the patient, we're not doing anything different in our care of you. And to me, that's a kind of a specious little argument, and I wouldn't object to asking Ian, who's our surgeon that does the cases, to use an iPass at gestation age in order to increase the odds that he was going to get an intact specimen. But I do need to throw it out there as a concern, because the patient is signing something and we're signing something saying we're not changing anything in the way we're managing you just because we agree to give tissue. Heard of that before.
All right. Yeah. No. It's definitely a.
It's touchy. Okay. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think, they're both totally appropriate techniques. There's no pain involved. I don't think the patients would care one iota. So I'm not thinking of us about that.
Okay.
The iPass is the manual extraction.
That's our shorthand for that.
So, would you? I could see where it might present some sort of problem for you. So, if we could compensate more on something like that.
Well, now you're shading into the area of you're paying me to do something that's not right. Sorry, that's not what I want to talk about.
No, I don't. No, I don't see that. What I see is I want to make sure that you, whatever you have to go through to deliver intact specimen, that's compensated. Not that I'm paying you to do something shady or.
Well, I have to discuss it with Ian, our surgeon. We'll see what he has to say.
Okay.
Your feelings about this?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just trying to think of it from his perspective. I don't know what his opinion would be on that.
Okay, well,
I think, yeah.
You're not putting the patient at any more risk, right? As you
No,
said.
No.
It's just slight variation of the technique.
Okay.
Which the consent for signing is for suction aspiration.
Right,
It
it is
doesn't
for-
describe
What kind?
what kind, so we make
But, I've
but
heard
still.
people argue
Yeah,
about
of course.
the fact that
Yeah,
the
you have
consent
all
form
that.
for the tissue donation
Says
part
that we're
just
not
specifically
doing
we're not
anything
doing
different.
So that's what I need to understand, because I'm seeing it as, of course, I'm looking for intact specimen, but you know from a medical perspective, the patient is receiving just as good a care, right? So help me understand the problem with.
Well, there are people who would argue that by using the iPass instead of the machine, you're slightly increasing the length of the procedure, and increasing the length of the procedure, you're increasing the pain of the procedure if you have local anesthesia or you just have sedation. So their technical arguments having to do with one technique versus another technique.
So it's technicalities. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's something I need to discuss with Ian before we agree to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you do second tries, are those for your gestational limit is 16
Yeah,
weeks?
well,
Is
we've
it?
been thinking for a long time to do slightly more. Right now,
1 month, yeah.
And so are you doing D&Es at all when you go up to 16 weeks, or is
No.
it is?
13 through 16 weeks are DNAs.
Okay, and Ian, or he's the one who he does all of the surgeries, and that's a hard cutoff at that point. He switches over to D&E,
it's a
or
billing cutoff. It's a billing cutoff.
Uh-huh.
Under 12 weeks is a D and C. Over 12 weeks is a D, whether you do it all with suction or you do dismemberment. And we've got written documentation from ACOG as to the definition of D and E, even though you're doing suction here. So it's totally a billing issue. In terms of the technique that he uses at 13 weeks is going to be the exact same suction technique he uses at 11 weeks. As it gets a little bigger, because he trained down in LA, when I do these cases, I tend to do suction for everything, but he tends to, do actual D&E at 16 weeks, say, or 14 weeks, or 13 weeks.
even at 14 weeks he'll do an actual D&E?
He might do a suction.
He might do a suction.
I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah. Because then it's kind of a different ballgame too when we're talking about D&Es, because then it's going to be all about the cervical dilation, and it's
But we
a
don't use
different.
laminar. We do everything with same day side effect.
Oh, interesting.
So he'll dilate up
Uh-huh.
and use the reception of all his forceps.
Interesting.
And is that just a personal preference?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
So what do you guys prefer in terms of collecting the tissue?
Well, I mean, the best for us would be, would be, multi-day induction.
Well, right. So that's not going to happen.
Right. No, but I mean, I mean, I don't know enough about the aspiration procedures, but that's kind of, I mean, I think that's kind of uncharted territory for maybe not completely uncharted, but it's certainly less common for tissue procurement right now. Most people are, what we're all familiar with is D&Es and trying to get as intact of a specimen that way as you can. But like I said, if we're looking at trying to kind of increase volume by dialing up specimen quality earlier, then it's just a different kind of thing. So I'm obviously, or maybe not obviously, cervical dilation isn't going to affect the intactness of a specimen in the first trimester, right? Or is there any difference with the cannula width or anything like that? No.
But in the first trimester, people are usually trained to use a cannula in the gestation. So it's 7 weeks, 7 cannula, 8 weeks, and 8 and there's another tricky thing. If you overdilate, which is a more painful patient, you can put a bigger cannula in and get a more intact specimen. But there, again, you promise that you're not going to change it, especially the way it's going to cause the patient more pain.
Yeah.
So,
Are there any other benefits to having a larger cannula at an earlier distance?
no.
No, it isn't.
Because the smaller, there are people who believe that the smaller cannula, the less pain there is. But the smaller you go in relationship to the weeks of pregnancy, the more likely you want to miss tissue too.
Right, that's what I meant. Is if perhaps there's a
The idea is probably
justification.
what we've been doing for years, but
Uh-huh.
besides the weeks of gestation. So we're used to it.
And this might be too technical, but do you happen to know or have in your procedure volume figures, do you have a breakdown at like that end of the second trimester, 10, 11, 12 weeks, kind of what we're looking at there? Or?
Yeah, it's probably something.
I have to ask. Well, it's something I can pull out of the balloon system. You can ask Sharon on it. But most patients are coming in earlier and earlier, so you're going to have more 7 weekers than 9 weekers, or 8 weekers than 10 weekers.
what's your feeling for how your staff would feel about us coming in?
I think if you present it in a positive light, and we present it in a positive light, you start off with a little 15-20-minute either PowerPoint or lecture about what we're doing this for, they'll be positive about it. Especially if you bring your own staff to the consent.
Especially what?
You bring your own staff to do the consent.
It's not viewed as an extra burden on them to explain it and that. I think that obviously.
Is your staff, are they aware of the research and how beneficial? No, would that be
The Lincoln here,
Yes, thank you.
the beet salad with chicken,
Yes, thank you very much.
goat cheese salad with chicken. Right back with your pasta, sir.
So I think that would be helpful for people to know the positive.
Oh, absolutely.
Would that be beneficial for a little educational?
Yeah, absolutely.
When we talked to people before, that seat going away from it, there just seems to be a change in attitude, more accepting of
You like any
being-
fresh ground pepper on the salads?
Awesome.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That's great, thank you.
That's some for you as well?
Yep.
You okay there?
Thank you.
Any pasta, sir?
Yes, please.
So at first it seems a
You
little.
want any chili flakes, parmesan with that?
Parmesan would be excellent. Yeah, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
The refills and the drinks here?
That'd be great.
Iced tea? Both iced teas?
Both sides.
So just our presence there, and that it can be people get used to the flow and what they're used to and have new people coming in. So I have found it so far when people that don't understand the research that's been going on, they don't see the positive that can come from this. Once they're told, once it's presented, so you think they would be open to that? And
Yeah, we have, just to share with you, that each health center has a monthly staff meeting. And we have speakers that come in all the time.
Okay.
Whether it be from pharmaceutical companies or we do our own in-services and updates on items. And it's also done, but they're very appreciative and they're very interested in learning new things. So I think, I think they, would react positively to this. With the understanding behind it.
Okay. And then, so once there's that understanding of why we're looking for, what we're looking for, and trying to coordinate patients with providing that. Was it Heather? Was that you said Heather's looking for something, but then because of the rush, she's not able to.
The rush, the staff didn't consent the patient.
Yes. So
that was why I suggested that we would want one of our techs to do the consenting because we wouldn't want to miss it.
Even if your text is doing the consenting, our staff has to identify patients who are wanting to talk to her. So I can easily see where rush, and even if your person is sitting there twiddling her thumbs, they're not sending the patient to her because they're too busy to even introduce the topic. I'm not saying what happened to our I'm saying
So how many days? How is that rush?
Every single moment. One of the ways that let me go back to this research we're currently involved with the Ella study, is that we added a special colored form to the intake paperwork to remind staff to ask these specific questions, so it was like rote script. They didn't have to remember this stuff. They could check off right on this slip. So I would envision probably developing something similar that would say, discuss, patient declines, patient agrees, and then the patients who agreed it would be passed off then to your staff member.
And when is
the
the
help
Ella?
of identity?
When is Ella finishing?
It's actually going through May now.
So we're going to say it would be helpful if we finish with that before we start with this. You could pick a different color, I guess. Are we internally incentivizing staff in any way around the Ella study?
No.
So this is something you see needing to be in place before we could come in. Is that what I'm hearing you say? No.
I was suggesting that if Ella finished soon, we could transition. We were doing this study, now we're doing something different. But they're not finished at all.
I was going to suggest some kind of pre-screening process. I think is this what you're referring to? Is that?
Essentially, yeah. Exactly. To be able to more easily identify and have a set script that they can just follow and not be trying to talk off the cuff about. It makes it much easier.
What words they're going to use?
Yeah, because certainly we want them to be very cognizant of the appropriate conversation with the patient.
Is that a reason maybe why you would? I feel maybe I'm hearing that you would prefer to have your staff doing that part because
We have to have our staff do the initial triage to you, and then you can have your staff do the consent process.
Identify those patients.
Your staff has to be the initial contact. That's what you're.
Because otherwise it's ridiculous, because if you send your person to everybody, then the patients who didn't want to do it would have to be, And we would have to have a contract in place and all that in place before we went to talk to the staff.
before they could. Because I was even imagining, I've heard of some some people even just have a tech as a floater, like out in the in the front. You can kind of pre-screen. They have a little clipboard. Hi, my name is Heather. Hi, my name is Brianna. I'm with Novogenics, or I'm with Biomass, and there's an opportunity at this clinic to donate your.
I just think back to in the 80s when I was talking, you and I were talking about that. Had this been around, I don't think I would have been doing as much work back in those days with women that were suffering or.
That might be overstating the case a little. We were talking before you got here about women typically agree that they want to see some good coming out of their pain and they want to see a silver lining, but I'm not sure that would change an awful lot of stuff. But it's on balance a good thing to do. But I'm not sure it would make a huge difference if people are just going to be depressed or they'll be unhappy about their situation.
I'm more hopeful.
Also.
I think that's just from working with the people, but you've got a different perspective, but that would be my hope. If people could see this, if staff could just be educated to see it, to know about it. What do you think, Laurel?
No, I mean, I think that if you look at our staff, and the age range, I mean, they're young, 20 years. A lot of them are. We've now moved to a process of hiring MA trained, and most of them are, but previously we were training our own staff. So I still don't think, even with official MA trained school staff, they get that exposure at all. I'm sure they've heard of it, but I think it definitely brings up their interest when they understand something and the reasons behind wanting to do something like this.
Do you happen to remember off the top of your head, just let's take maybe last week or this week as an example, or I guess today is a procedure day because today is Friday. Do you know what the breakdown was of gestational ages that was scheduled today?
We keep asking the question, we keep telling you we don't know.
Yeah, no. So what happens is
if
we look at the schedule itself, it just breaks
it's
it
not
down by
gonna-
first
just
or
first
second
or
try.
second.
Yeah.
Were
So
there
it
any
takes
second
going
tries?
into. I think there were some schedule. I know a couple of weeks ago there were I think they did 3. But it actually takes looking at the individual documentation on the ultrasounds. I mean, again, it's the possibility of being able
It's
to
also on
pull
the
a
EPM.
report.
It's on the EPM record because the EPM is billed by gestational age, right? No?
Just first and second try.
What's in Los Angeles?
That I'm aware of.
What's our system? Next gen. Yeah, I think in LA, the next gen billing records had the gestational age pulled directly from the ultrasound on it.
The billing, yeah, it may have that.
Remember, you just run Sharon can run an EPM report saying
Yeah, that
of
would
the
probably
789 procedures, how many were 9 weeks, how many were 10 weeks. You know, and when I was at LA, I used to be able to hit a button and do it myself, but that's not as easy now as it is.
So you think there was at least one second try today, though?
I mean, I didn't look at the schedule
Yeah.
today, so no.
Probably law of averages is going to be 1 or 2 every week.
So, Mary, did I hear you say that you were semi-retired?
Yep. But now I filled my schedule. I'm busier than I was when I was working at LA. I mean, this was a 60-hour-a-week job, you know. And so I thought, oh, good, yes, I need 1 day a week. You know. But meanwhile, I joined a barbershop chorus that meets every Wednesday night. And these women are serious Sweet Adeline singers. I mean, serious singers. And we go to retreats and we sing for 12 hours at a stretch. And there's a contest coming up in Bakersfield.
Oh my goodness.
who wear these spangly costumes that they would be embarrassed about in Las Vegas and ridiculous stuff like that. And then I belong to a local amateur theater group, and they put me on the steering committee and a membership committee, and we're having discussions about what it means to be a member and should you pay dues, all that conversation. I'm just busy, And then I got a call. Yesterday, I got a call yesterday from PP International. They want to put together a cadre of medical directors to do international reviews, and I also do reviews for PPFA. I go around the country and part of the accreditation process. So, the answer to your question, I'm been busy. So, what were you thinking about, though? Oh, my daughter's wedding. Yeah, that's coming up. Mother of the bride dress. Oh, that's what I'm saying. I'll be having this Reuben. I need to fit into this dress. So, yeah. How about yourself? What do you do for fun?
Nothing for fun.
Oh.
Nothing for fun. No, I
Not
could try it all the time. Nothing for fun. But it doesn't sound, well, I don't know. Sounds like you're busier now.
Unpaid activities, yeah, but still fun. Good research. We have research papers published last week with Devin Gatola. In fact, Devin and I and someone else did a research paper that we were inspired to do by Danko, because this is a political issue, but a lot of red states are trying to decrease abortion access by passing ridiculous legislation. And one of them is that you have to use the FDA regimen for medication abortion, which is from 2000. And it's outdated and outmoded, and we have evidence-based alternatives now. But the red state legislatures are saying, no, you have to have 17 million visits, you have to do this, you have to do that, right? And you can't do telemedicine either, which they're doing in Iowa, which is great. And so Danko, people rarely go back to the FDA to change the label because it's expensive and there's no point to it because doctors are used to using evidence-based alternatives. They don't have to have the label. But if the politicians are saying you have to obey the label, then Danko, the manufacturer, needs to go back to the FDA and say, we want to change the label. But Danko said we needed a big volume of patients to prove that it's safe and effective. So because LA had all these cases, so Deb and I and another researcher out of Princeton, we put together a paper looking at the results of 15,000 patients with labs using the evidence-based alternatives. And guess what? It's safer, easier, more effective than the regimen that the stupid idiots want us to use. So that's the kind of stuff. I'm interested in political research. So.
Where do you see that going? You're working with Deborah, you said?
Well, we just published this coming out in Contraception shortly, and I had worked with some researchers out of UCSF up there, Katrina Kimport and Tracy White's group. Tracy's now moved to Omaha to be part of the Buffett Foundation. But anyway, so that group and I took a look at whether it made a difference in your decision to proceed to abortion if you were forced to have an ultrasound or not. Because as it happens, we've got an EMR system that we record the patient's decision, do you want to see it or not, because California is optional, So not only did we record her decision, did she want to see it or not, we obviously recorded whether she had the procedure, and we had a separate thing that said, how sure are you about your decision? Very sure, not sure, someone's forcing me, that kind of thing. So we looked at 30,000 patients to see if having the ultrasound looking at it made a difference. And guess what? For most patients, it does not. 60% of patients didn't want to look at it, 40% did. They both proceeded to abortion at the exact same way, with the exception of women who were uncertain about their decision. If you were uncertain in seeing the ultrasound, you were 1 or 2 percentage points less likely to have the procedure. So it's a kind of nuanced finding, but and our enemies don't do nuance, as you know. So we published that last year. What do you do for fun, Robert?
For fun?
Do I want to hear this?
It's yeah. I think I enjoy blowing off steam the same way that anybody does. There's lots of fun stuff to do in the South LA and Orange County area. If you stay clear of the parts of Orange County. But
I can tell you're a clubbing person.
it's a polite way of saying it. So, yeah.
You're a young man.
So
you are.
I'm sure that Dr. Van Handel with Novogenics would say the same things.
Yeah. Who else was with Novogenics? There's an Asian guy who, I'm so bad at names.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd be horrified if I got his name.
So they've been exclusively contracted with PPLA for quite some time, is my understanding. And that's the other thing is that once someone is in, they're in, and there's not really room to
They've got to do something
share.
really bad to be kicked out.
Yeah.
Kind of self-sustaining, But they were helped by. Came in, was pleasant, unobtrusive, turned her hand to anything, didn't get in the way, was efficient, wrapped up her specimens, sent them out, took them out.
I guess I'm still thinking about the second tries if it might. I mean, if we knew that we were going to be able to get, say, a liver thymus pair, and even if it's just one, but consistently per week, I think that would be a good start, because I mean, obviously that limits how many researchers we can serve at once, but at the same time, that gets you started, and it's a promise you can keep. Exactly.
So which gestation ages are we talking about in terms of
So,
5 to 9?
well, if it's a liver thymus pair, that's used in the humanized mouse models. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where they have an immunodeficient rodent, and you can engraft human tissue and blood products in order to reconstitute a human immune system in it, and that's used for all kinds of different applications. But it's highly dependent on having a paired liver thymus set from a fetal cadaver, and so that's so that's always in demand. People always want that. I was just at 2 or 3 different meetings. The thymus is pretty tiny. So I mean, and liver is I guess similar in coloration consistency to the vaginal lining, so that can be difficult to. That's why people want. That's one of the reasons for second tries. It's just easier to identify everything. But in terms of the differentiation of the progenitor cells in those tissues, there is also kind of a sweet spot at I think you could technically say 14 and up, with 14 to 22 weeks. Most of the protocols call for 18 to 22 weeks, but no, I think that's 6, and that's an older protocol that's 16 to 22 weeks. So you can the skid mice have definitely been engrafted with 14-week liver and thymus tissue. So it would just be a matter of knowing that that if our tech goes there that Friday, there's going to be at least one case there that's got that for certain. We can get it, send it off, and that would be worth it.
Suppose you call in Monday and you say, okay, there's 2 14-weekers coming in on Friday. We don't know until Friday if they're going to agree.
Right.
So you could also call in the morning to say, if you ask Mary Jones if she's willing to now come in. But
right.
We really don't have volume. We need. That's a problem.
Right. Right. Put in door in California. That's true. So that's why I come back to if it's a matter of just finding out the day before and just committing that it's a 2-hour round trip or whatever for someone to drive out. That could be worth it. That could be really worth it. So it would be good. The name of your physician again, Dr.
Ian Tilley.
Dr. Ian Tilley. I think it would be good to touch base with him about what.
I'm having lunch in a few weeks, but
excellent.
just chat with him about that. And PPFA takes an enormous amount of time to get back in terms of contractual issues and stuff and permissions. But
So you would have to apply for the waiver that you spoke of from.
Which I'm willing to. It's not that big a deal.
Does that go to Deborah? Is she the one who signs off?
She's one of the people we go to, but they keep changing who it goes to, so she's involved in the process.
Okay.
So that's why I don't want a lowball. So I hear this is what you're going to have to go through: frustration, time, just the paperwork.
All we love him. But you provide delicious beet salad, so.
Where's your company located?
Long Beach, North area, yeah.
We used to have my PPO, because we used to have surgical site in Long Beach. No, that was PPO, and they stopped their Long Beach site too. I don't think Heather ever went to Long Beach now. That I think about it.
Do you know well the Orange San Bernardino affiliate?
Jennifer Russo.
Because we were told that they're very high volume and they're right there next door to us. The last that I heard was that they were working with a private laboratory in Orange. That I guess that would be technically a research study, bona fide research study, because it's just going straight to the researchers who are using it there. But depending on, but I don't know. I don't have any more information on what they were after and what was being done. But it sounded to me like, well, if it's just one laboratory, there's probably availability, room for expansion, availability for results to come in. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if Dr. Russo will be there in Orlando, then maybe we can have that conversation.
Absolutely. Come up to me in Orlando to remind me.
Definitely, yeah, that would be helpful. Huh?
I'm still calling you David because when you were out, we were having a conversation about forgetting names.
Forgetting names.
Oh.
And I said, well, I called you David. I don't know. I know it's your middle name. I never call you that. We were just
No,
laughing
it was my
about how
middle name.
we're not hearing and forgetting, and welcome to our world.
Yeah,
Oh.
people of a certain age. Where they say youth is wasted on the young.
Don't look at me.
Yeah,
Names,
well,
I can't remember me. Yeah.
Were you better with names though? I think I was always.
I've always been bad.
I've
Yeah.
been bad, but it's much worse.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I said I've reached capacity, and unless I dump somebody out, I can't put somebody else in. It's a dumping mechanism
And
at this point.
to be as people that you have known for literally years and you can't remember their name, it's way too late to say, can you remind me what your name is? That's why every organization I'm with, I recommend name tags in big font.
Yes.
And then you're looking at people's chests too. Oh, Susie. And I said, so,
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
It's horrific.
Actually, out of the way, ladies.
Thanks for
Part of my
your
research.
experience.
Thank you. Very well.
So even though we don't have high volume, I see that there are other niches you could fill for us. So do you think so?
Yeah, I'm thinking
all right, so here's
stopgap
my
is what.
suggestion. Write me, now you have my email address.
You got your email, yeah.
Write me a 3 or 4 paragraph proposal, which I will then take to Will and others in our organization to see if we want to pursue this. And then if we want to pursue this mutually, I'll mention this to Ian in terms of how he feels about using a less crunchy technique to get more whole specimens. And then if we agree to move forward, the next steps I need to apply to PFA for a waiver for us to do this. We have to have a contract. We have a contract already.
We have what we've used in the past is a materials transfer agreement, and that's obviously open to discussion.
And
And
that's a prototype, and you say exactly what your staff is going to do, exactly what your expectations are, exactly what your compensation is. Now you're agreeing that your person will use only the specified federal government tissue donation form, and you can add extra ones if you want, but California.
do you have a copy of your form that you can send us, and we can
Our form for
your form for tissue donation, the standard one.
the federal government one, yeah. It's important. Outline this in the email you send us, because otherwise I'll forget by the time I read the rest of it, and then I can look at it.
And are we agreed that $100 would keep you happy?
I think so.
Well,
I mean,
let me agree to find out from other
Yeah.
affiliates in
Right.
California what they're getting, and if they're getting substantially more, then we can discuss it again.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the money is not the important thing.
No,
But it has
no.
to be big enough that it's
But
worthwhile.
it
giving you
is something
space
to talk about. I mean, it's
No.
one of the first things that you brought up, right? So,
Now here's another thought: is we could talk about specimen as per specimen per case, or per procured tissue sample, which would be so that if we're able to get a liver thymus pair, maybe that is $75 per specimen, and so that's for for liver thymus pair, and that's 150, versus if we can get liver thymus, brain hemisphere, and all that, then and so that protects us so that we're not paying for what we can't use. And I mean, I think it also maybe illustrates things
It's
for.
been years since I talked about compensation, so let me just figure out what others are getting. And if this is in the ballpark, then that's fine. If it's still low, then we can talk about it. I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have to drive a Lamborghini. Oh my God, I was in Scotland a few months ago, driving on the wrong side of the road. You know, I was like, oh my God, I'm too close to that side. You know?
I couldn't even sit in the front seat in Australia. It was, I'll sit in the back.
I sat in the front and my sister was driving, and every time she skived where I got too close, I go, eek, eek, eek. Finally, my other sister in the back said, stop, get out of that seat. You can't sit there anymore.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Do you have family there?
My sister's into genealogy, so I'm half Irish and a quarter Scots. So the Scots part, we went to Scotland to where our great-great-grandfather emigrated. It's a sea captain, actually. He wrote some interesting letters about being becalmed in the South Seas and stuff like that. 1870 or something. So fun.
Or was your first time there?
Yes. Well, no, actually, it was my second. So I was in Edinburgh when I was a medical student at the Simpson Royal Maternity Pavilion, where we did 3 months of OB. That was interesting because the midwives did the deliveries, but at that time they weren't allowed to do episiotomies. So the midwives would do the deliveries, then tell them it was a delivery, and the next morning at 8 o'clock, the medical students would go in and do all the episiotomies repair. It was ridiculous, you know. Wow, ridiculous. That was my second time.
And now you have a wedding coming up.
My daughter's getting married in New Jersey. I mean, yeah, Atlantic City. Yes, she's getting married. She's going to law school, so she's marching towards her life. So that's fun too.
And how about you, Laurel? Do you have children?
Two married children.
Two married children, and
One
my daughter is
grandchild.
pregnant again.
Oh no, that
5
was so
months. And she wanted to have them 13 months apart. Guess what? She's going to have them 13 months apart. It's good for you. She asked, are you ready to retire yet? I said, can you afford for me to retire yet? So, but very fun. So 5-month-old granddaughter and then 5 older grandchildren, step-grandchildren from 26 to 16.
Oh, goodness.
So
What was her reasoning for 13 months?
she just wanted to have them close together.
Okay.
It is going to be, it looks like it'll be 13 months. Yeah.
My sister and I are 13 months apart.
Yeah, my brother and I are too. So, but you know, she's very fortunately she's a stay-at-home mom, doesn't need to work. Hey, okay.
How about
As
you?
long as you've got the energy.
What are your children doing?
They're both in college.
Where are they going?
They're at Cal Poly.
Two of them in Cal Poly.
Mm-hmm.
My son, I think, yeah.
Very good.
We should be moving on. We're going to stick you with the check.
Yes, yes. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for
It was
being
a pleasure
flexible.
Meeting with you. My apologies for being late.
No need.
It's been one of those days. I'm glad it's Friday.
And we're meeting when we get...
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
You're going directly up there?
Yeah, I'll go up there.
Excellent. Well, I'll draft up like a 4-paragraph proposal. I'll send over one of our draft contracts just as an example, and we can continue. Excellent. And then we'll see you in Orlando.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
I'm not going to shake your hand because of my cold, so you don't need any extra.
Sterile
germs.
technique.
At least try to keep people healthy.
Thank you.
Not for us, but you can try that.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting
Very
you.
nice to meet you.